Good morning, everybody. More whippy action going on here. And so as I'm looking at this, I'm starting with the spiders and looking at the hourly chart. I titled YouTube there, is this a bullish consolidation forming, or is it an M pattern that's beginning to form here? I think we'll know by the end of the day today. So we had the momentum move up, and what was this? Yesterday's gap down, and it held there. Remember, yesterday we talked about this 430 area being a significant reference point. Not that there was much of anything to the left, but it was a big open interest for put options there. And the idea was those big open interests often will provide a level of support. And if it hangs there for a while and begins to break, prices can drive lower. And of course, you look to the left to see, well, drive lower to where? Is there anything to stop it? And because of the momentum move up, there's really little to stop it. So now we're in this trading range. And yesterday morning, just pointing over here to the what's happening at that time, there was this little breakout failure and prices came down and they held the 430 area and came back up and then rallied up yesterday and then had this M type of a top there and fell all the way back down and then held the 430 area again. And this just looked like a short covering rally into the close when it didn't break. And so overnight, you can see what's going on again. Little breakout failure, back down, bottoming again, making a higher low. Right? The pivots here are at a higher low. It didn't go down there. So buyers, I would see that as being a little bit more aggressive, creating these pivots here and coming into this little void of this breakdown. And does it get back up to the top of the range or through it? You can see yesterday was pretty much an inside day, running in place, going nowhere. And so how long can this go on for? Well, it can go on for as long as it wants, of course. But I think today, just looking at the pattern and kind of just looking at like a symmetry of it, that if something is going to roll over, it should happen, I guess, going into tomorrow. But hopefully it's not just so far. That's what it looks like. It was lower and it's come back up, backing off a little bit here. But 430, it's right in the middle of the range there. And you can see the cursor was down a little bit lower. Buyer stepped up, so a higher low. So far, a lower high. They can maybe get a little higher. You can see the top of the range where the cursor is at 437. But so far, just running in place in a little trading range. This red area here is where I would have preferred it would have went right up in there yesterday. Just the third day up, and that would be your classic, run up into resistance after the drop, and then a couple of sideways days and rolling back down. But market isn't going to play it out that way. So the longer it goes sideways here, two sides. It's either building a little area of support that it could push in through here, or the M situation is it's building an area of resistance, and either way, it's got to break 430 or at least get through 440 to go higher. So we're into some choppy price action here, and the idea is to stay out of the mess, as long, until things are resolved one way or the other. And one way of resolving it would be, and we got a similar pattern here in the Qs, would be a correction type of bar. What's a correction bar? Well, it breaks the low. So let's say today, it goes down, it breaks down here, and say maybe somewhere it goes for whatever. It could be the bottoming tail bar from 2 days ago, right? And it springs right back up again. So if we had a bottoming tail type of a bar, we don't have a gap down today, but if we had a bottoming tail bar, we'd have that correction bar, and we'd look to go up into this resistance area and see, does it stall there? So again, we're just into some sloppy price action after this, extended move down in the gap, and it's trying to go up. News, whatever, Russia, interest rates, so on. In any event, it's in a downtrend. It's a little extended to the downside. We got a bottoming tail bar here, which is good. Ideally, this goes down and makes a retest, and I think that would be a fantastic opportunity, even if it came down to 310 and broke the low. But right now, we're just kind of in limbo, the middle of nowhere. Institutions just waiting for the next news item or something to propel this market one way or the other. Let's look at the futures, S&Ps. Let's see, nowhere. Down, the bottoming pattern that occurred here. A little bit of a higher low. And we'll see whether it can keep going or whether we're going to be in the same kind of slop all day today. The Dow. These patterns, we've been talking about the fact that these patterns across these markets have been quite similar. And I pointed out because you might think that it's always that case, and it isn't. Sometimes they're vastly different as they trade either on the daily or even intraday. But as you can see, they're not exact, but they're pretty darn similar in how they're trading. One of the positives, and I guess takeaways from yesterday and that short covering rally, was that the financials, where they were weak, they held up. And then, that was one of the legs under the market, that the financials just didn't collapse. So that's something that I'm keeping an eye on. Especially Citibank was weak and went lower and then began to recover. And we'll see how that plays out. Qs just going nowhere here. That took out the low, took out the high, trading at the top of the range here. Pivot highs, pivot lows, they're close together. The message there is pretty much, unless you're, going for little scalps, just stay away until this thing resolves itself one way or the other. Yeah. And the Russell, just trading range, more defined trading range on the daily chart. But as we look at the 60-minute chart, it looks pretty much the same, where we had the move down and the move up, and it's just back and forth here. As it go back to the top, just taking note that this is a new high within this move. It did take out the pivot. And we'll just have to see if this, over the course of the next couple of hours, whether, it makes a lower high or a right side shoulder here. So it's the takeaway, just a different way of explaining it and looking at it here, is that we really don't know which way things are going for the moment. And it is what it is. We wait for it to resolve itself, and we want these markets to trend one way or the other. But the uncertainty about whether it's the news or just the patterns that are playing out right now, which is going to take a little while, whether this starts to roll over here or whether it can go sideways to go higher. We're waiting. I mean, in any event, the trend is down. The trend is down and so forth. This is just consolidating at the bottom of this nasty wide range bar on the weekly. And as we look at, back to other markets, while the bottoming tail is encouraging, it came down to a level that we expected it for buyers to show up. The trend is still down, and it's got to resolve itself. And the ideal scenario historically is to come down and retest that, or however it's going to form here, whether it's sideways or retest. The ideal scenario is to move away from this nasty move to the downside. So when we talk about basing patterns, W patterns, head and shoulder bottoms, it's just different lengths of moving to the right away from the collapse. And so that is what ultimately we're looking for, that can, may take weeks for that to play out. Whereas what we're seeing here on the 15-minute chart would be something that could form on the weekly chart, or the daily. In any event, similarity or the same patterns occur in all time frames, and they mean the same thing in all time frames. They just have much bigger implication when we see that happening on larger time frames. Right now, the smaller time frames are in a mode of trying to figure it out. And Bitcoin, top of the trading range. Let's just drag this down here. And drag that up here. So we had these pokes to the downside. This was clearly in a downtrend, wide range bar, bottoming tail bar. So as it begins to accelerate, getting climactic, and then so stabilization and a retest. This was a great little pattern there of breaking the lows and coming back up. Now it's to the top of the trading range. This is where the sellers are going to be. If you played down here, it's the place to scale out, get out, or trail a prior bars low. Crude oil, amazing, right? Back up here. Look, buyers keep coming for this because the Russia thing, which is, I guess, has been, well, I guess it all started with pipeline, and now putting everybody in this situation for political reasons. Right? And so unless that changes, and I thought I heard something on the news, well, I guess the media talking about why doesn't he open up the pipeline, right? Dealing this, well, that would be too obvious. But if something like that happens, opening up a pipeline, resolve to the issue, whatever, the danger in this is that it collapses. And with that, oil stocks, but right now buyers are in control, and we see a rejection of 100 and a topping tail, and it's coming right back up again. Right? Speculative, fundamental, supply, demand, whatever. Right? This isn't a bullish scenario, and we see topping tails, red bar ignored. And I don't know if we go and look at to get rid of that crazy situation where oil was negative. I don't know if we can get enough data here. We can't. So we have to go and look at this and see, right, as we always do, look to the left. And so we've got this congestion area over there as it comes up to. And so getting to the top of that is still a pretty good distance to get to the top of that trading range before we'd say oil hits the, that big area, which could 107, 110, but it's still in a bullish trend. Silver is pretty sloppy, but it's still holding up pretty well. Kind of like that hourly chart. The fact that it recovered and these pivots is going sideways, a bullish 180 there. So that looking decent, not great, but decent. It's got a void. And I was saying, will not buy vodka anymore from Russia. No Russian standard. I saw on the news they were dumping it in the street. Somewhat similar there. And this is just a mess. And interestingly, well, this is popping up this morning. And so a little bit of a back off in the 13-week Treasury bill as to what the Fed is going to do, maybe the uncertainty. Before it was a pretty good bet on 50 basis points. Now this is pulling in, so a quarter of a point, whatever. We know they're going to do something. and the 5-year, that pulled in a lot. So this is somewhat helpful for the markets. Interest rates coming in. The 10-year, kind of a little bit of a collapse there, down to support. It was well up here, and just taking a look here. See these very short-term yield curves perking up a little bit. So, that one. This is goes to the 30-year coming down as much as it is. We'll have to keep an eye on that. So this is a positive and that's a negative, but it's still very far from being a concern. But it's interesting. So things are unfolding. You don't have a real clear message, regardless of where we look. And yes, that's probably still going to take a few days on the short term, or maybe a few weeks on the intermediate term. All yours, Dan.
Good morning. Yeah, Dallas, I hear what you're saying there. We're still our pipeline is closed. Day one of Sleepy Joe's presidency, and we're still paying Russia for oil. You can thank AOC for that. All right, all our opens are fine. Bitcoin perking here again. All those Bitcoin related stocks are doing well. I was watching a bunch of them over the weekend, and they still look good. We got naked puts on MSTR. Riot looks good. I gave a big list of put and call candidates. Let's see. All our opens are fine. Even anything gapping against us on a put spread is not very much. They're fine. So let's go right to gappers here. Greg mentioned this one to me. SDIG. Doug had earnings bottoming pattern. So this is a beautiful bottoming pattern. Made a new low. This is what's called a bullish new low divergence. Snapped right back, 1, 2, 3, bullish close. Beautiful bottoming pattern. So that I like over the high. Doug, look at Russia here. I mean, they are really getting squeezed out of the international disgust for what they're doing. All these companies I see, they're stopping business, they're stopping travel, they're blocking shipping lanes, and that's exactly what the world needs to do, to put a pariah in his hole. So I like the teamwork, so to speak, of the world going against them. And I've been asking, fundamentally, how low can this thing go, the Russian stock equity ETF? And I don't know. I don't know. But I love climos and I love extreme greed and fear. So I think this will turn eventually. But let the stock tell us when. I don't know when. Sonny's asking about LSPT. It's a bottoming pattern, but I don't like the topping tail. So compare this, Sonny, compare this to the two that I just reviewed, Doug and SDIG. You see how these are significantly better turning patterns with a price void? Triple D here is gapping up. It's a big gap up, but that looks like a long-term bottom. Greg just sent out a video, put it in our Telegram, but we're going to be talking about M and W patterns. And, They don't have to be beautiful, but this is a bullish retest on the weekly. So this is a Bitcoin gap reversal and support. Look at that. That's a bullish pre-market. Target maybe 200. Riot put spread. I'm going to put that in the window. Jobs was earnings, big gap. Well, that gap's too big, but if there's any juice for put spread. Now you see why I like my little small weekly and monthly charts here. Look at this beautiful weekly. It's also a retest. 1, 2, 3 with a price void. The problem is the gap's too big. Baidu, wow, Baidu was up 5 earlier. It's up 10 now. Look at that. 162, gap's too big. XOP, remember I mentioned into the close yesterday? That looks so good to me. Look at that wide range breakout, daily, weekly, monthly. Little bullish consolidation breakout right into the close. Kicking myself for not getting that. So this is gapping down, but it's a nasty downtrend. I got no interest in Varoom. That thing might go to 0. SBAC bottoming pattern. You got the gap engulfing reversal. Can't tell where it's gapping. We'll come back to you. DD, can't tell where you're gapping, but that's a mess. Workday, big gap, 248. It's gapping right here to the 50 MA. 30-minute low. I'd rather sell a call spread on that just because of the big move from there to resistance. And sale, we talked about already. Hewlett Packard. Now, if it can negate the gap down and take out yesterday's high, then I like it. For a little swing trade, Groupon, bearish gap. That's a call spread candidate. Big C, nasty gap. Wow, $5 on a $26 stock. That's an ugly death trend. That's ugly. AMBA, that used to be a Wall Street favorite. Look at that, it was 220 bucks a couple months ago. Now it's cut in half. It's gapping under this. I don't know, it's a nasty gap, nasty big gap. I have no idea which way it's gonna bounce. I'm gonna put that in a window. SDC, wow, this is a new IPO, Smile Direct. Look at that, 16 bucks. Now it's $2. Now get your cheeseburger at McDonald's. That's ugly. I got some problems in that company. No pattern. THC, no pattern, but strong. Segre will come back. I don't see any gaps here. It's in a downtrend. OSH. It's up 3. I don't know. It could be a day trade over yesterday's high. That's what we call an end of day base, which means it had a beautiful run in the morning and it held the strength all day in the upper third. Here's another disaster gap. GDRX to all-time lows. Wow, look at that. A year ago, 60 bucks. But again, the gap's so big, I have no idea what's going to happen at the open. EMDP 294. Potential bottoming pattern, but there's no shock yet. Oh, here's another good example of a shock. Rita yesterday. So this is a dead animal, but it gapped down on earnings, big old fat engulfing, closing breakout bar on volume, end of day base. So it's a bio, I think, of some sort, but over yesterday's high was a day trade on Rita. This needs to take out the red bars high to get going. This is a 1, 2, 3, but it's already had a big move off the low. Gapping down $79. So NVAX is a call spread candidate. Yeah, I hear you. All right, so here's another bottoming pattern. Made a new low and didn't go anywhere. You got two inside bars in the upper 40%, and now it's gapping up. So that could be a great 30-minute high trade. I'm going to put that in a window. Task. Delta Yankee, no pattern, although it's a sell setup in the weekly. RKLB. Now this would be another nice bottoming pattern over the red bar. Trade's really spotty. Wow, that's 5 million volume. I'm going to go ahead and put that in a window. RKLB. Okie already broke out, extended, but strong. You need a pullback. LI. I know it's up 3 bars, but it's a closing breakout and it's another end of day base. So maybe, see if it can go sideways here for 30 minutes. So we'll get a better handle on what the 4 horsemen are going to do. And then after 30 minutes, if it takes out yesterday's high, there's a day trade long. XPEV, potential bottoming, but too sloppy. All right, Trex, I was hoping it was going to gap up a little bit for a put spread for, a downside shakeout, but I see some prints here at 86. There's no volume though. We'll come back to you. Laser, garbage. FRPT up 3 bars. Darden, no gap yet, but extended. LCID, that's getting destroyed. Not destroyed like some of the others, but 29 to 24. That's a pretty darn big gap. They said they're cutting back on car delivery. This was up, now it's down, a mess, no interest. I don't like shorting $4 stocks. Twink, up but no volume. Put spread candidate, Twink. I'm assuming that's Twinkies. No pattern, too sloppy, you're going. ITCI, no pattern, but strong. IGT, gapping down, no pattern. HCNP. Possible. Oh, now look where it gapped up. So now it's more bullish. Gapping over a red bar with a price void. There you go. That could be a 10-minute high trade. 10-minute high. Delta 20 is asking about Etsy. Yeah, it had a nice gap on earnings with a bottoming tail, has a price void, maybe 30-minute high. I'm not going to rush into anything here. I want to see what the broader markets are going to do. Golf is in a downtrend, sell setup, no interest. 4. There's a day trade short idea. 5-minute low, price void, sell setup. I'd wait for a 5-minute low. Marvel. You got to tell me what you're looking at, Thane. It's not jumping out at me. All right, Q's 5-minute are holding very well. Everything's now per